Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We have all of your Tesla stock breaking news in this video, as well as what to expect this week from earnings and economic data. But if you're still not convinced a potential Trump presidency would be good for Tesla, take a listen to this. And yes, keep in mind, this is not political. Just the odds are that Trump is the next president, whether you like it or not. So to have a heads up like, hey, this is good news or would be bad news, I think is pretty valuable.
And you know, Elon, I love Elon Musk. Do we love him? I love him. And I'm constantly talking about electric cars, but I don't mean I'm against, I'm totally for them, but whatever the market says, and if it's 10% of the market, 12%, 7%, 20%, whatever it is, it's okay. But you can't have 100% electric cars. And you know, so Elon endorsed me recently, the other day, actually. He's great. Elon Musk. He's a brilliant guy. Every time I call him, he's talking about, I got a new idea for a rocket. You have to hear this? No, it's true. You know, the first time I ever saw this, I'm watching television like 3 years ago, and I see a rocket engine, motor engine, come down landing, straight up in, no wings, no nothing, and it's landing. I thought I was seeing things. What is that? And it's landing on a barge in the middle of the ocean. And then another one comes down, and another one. I guess 4 of them came down, 3 or 4, and they land upright. I said, what the hell was that? I've never seen that before. Now, if that were government, you wouldn't see that for another 50 to 100 years. But it was Elon. Now think of that. And I called him, and I've always had a good relationship with him, but I called him and I said, what was that? He said, well, we saved the engines. We saved the engines because it's very expensive to build. So, I mean, it didn't take me long to figure that if you save them, that's good, but who the hell thought you could do that? No wings, no nothing, just like these big, long, massive tubes, and they're landing gently right on the dot. I said, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And you say, how long would it take government to come up with that one? I don't think they ever heard of it. Perhaps they still haven't heard of it. But, you know, he's a very advanced person, and he's doing other things that are great, and so are others. We have to make life good for our smart people, you know? We have some smart people. We have to make life good for our smart people. And he's as smart as you get. But Elon endorsed me the other day, and I didn't even know this. He didn't even tell me about it. But he gives me $45 million a month. A month. Not 45 million. Gives me 45 million a month. And I talked to him just a little while ago to say I was coming here, how you doing? And he didn't even mention it. He didn't mention. I mean, other guys, they give you $2 and you got to take them to lunch. You got to wine them, dine them. No, he's a...
So the current administration refuses to even say Elon Musk or acknowledge Tesla. And the potential new party says he loves Elon Musk. Clearly, there is a beneficial relationship here for Tesla stock investors. Now, the biggest obvious reason why a potential T-Man presidency would be good for Tesla compared to the current administration, leave the politics out of it, but we will get more rate cuts, and Tesla as a rate-sensitive business is greatly helped by rates coming down. Now, that rally did take place in Michigan, my home state, and that is pretty interesting that he was talking about Elon in Michigan, because, I mean, not a lot of people even own Teslas in Michigan. On that note, I did see the first Cybertruck out in the wild yesterday. I actually had to, I like double taked at it for a second because it almost doesn't look real after, you know, I haven't seen one in person yet. I whipped around and you know, did a U-turn and pulled into the restaurant. It was a Caribbean restaurant. And there were people walking out the restaurant. I seen 2 couples, and all of them were stopping and taking pictures. Like, the Cybertruck is still a polarizing product, and it will probably be that way for another year or two. And I used to talk about this all of the time, but I think it's worth mentioning again. The Cybertruck will cause a halo effect, but it's going to take some time. Cybertruck is like picking a good wife. It's a gift that keeps on giving. Jake Paul today posted on his X account with 4.6 million followers his Cybertruck. And he's got some armor on. I believe there's a fight tonight that he's doing. But looks like he's the latest quote-unquote celebrity to take delivery of a Cybertruck. It's also being reported today that Tesla's FSD supervised version 12.5 hands-free will now allow you to go hands-free while wearing sunglasses. Now, the biggest catalyst for Tesla this upcoming week is Tesla earnings. Now, we have a bunch of other companies that will report earnings as well. Monday, tomorrow morning, you have Verizon, Truist Bank. In after hours, you have Cleveland Cliffs, Nucor, NXP. NXP does a lot of their business directly, like 50% of their business with Apple. So that's a pretty good heads up of maybe what Apple's earnings could be. So that'll be important. Cadence is a big semiconductor name. AGNC also on there as well. And Alexandria and Zion's. Someone has a big short on it. On Alexandria, I was listening to that on CNBC, so that could be interesting for potential trade. Tuesday pre-market, Spotify, UPS, GE Aerospace, GM, Coca-Cola, Lockheed Martin, Comcast, Polaris, and Philip Morris International. And then Tuesday and after hours, Tesla, Google, Enphase, Visa, Texas Instruments, Chubb, Seagate, Capital One, and PCA. Wednesday pre-market, Vertiv, AT&T, Next Era Energy, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and GE Vernova. And then Wednesday and after hours, Chipotle, Ford, ServiceNow, IBM, Viking, Las Vegas Sands, Whirlpool, and Waste Management. Thursday pre-market, American Airlines, AbbVie, Hasbro, Honeywell, RTX, Southwest, AstraZeneca, Keurig, Dr. Pepper, and a couple of others there. Thursday after hours, Dexcom, Skechers, Texas Roadhouse, Deckers Brands, Boston Beer, Juniper, Lending Tree, and a couple of others, smaller companies. Friday pre-market, Bristol Myers, 3M, Charter, Centene, and some others like Colgate's and T. Rowe Price. Specifically for Tesla, it's all going to be about Tesla's earnings. And I'll give you a kind of a brief recap of the last video. I recommend you watch that video. It's titled "Watch This Before Tesla Earnings." And the expectations are still pretty low for the actual numbers. Revenue is expected to go up about 1% year over year. EPS is expected to be down about 30% year over year. Auto gross margins are expected to be down almost 2% from last quarter. I think there's room for some upside surprises here. And I think it's fair to say this rally that we've seen recently has priced in those upside surprises. It's priced in good news for Tesla's actual numbers. So I don't think there's a lot of upside there if we just beat the numbers. Let me be honest, because we went from, from last quarter at least, which was back here in April, you've went from that low of $140 per share from to 270 today at 240. I just don't think there's a lot of upside with the numbers themselves. Now, it's the commentary that we get for the Robotaxi day that is important. It is the potential unveiling of cheaper models that we get that will be unveiling. Like, for an example, though, I want to be honest. If we get good numbers across the board, but no new details or information on the Robotaxi event or on the cheaper models, then I think Tesla stock is up or down 2 or 3%. Like, I'm not expecting some kind of big fall here, but I'm not expecting a lot of upside either. I'm sure we do get new information on the Robotaxi event. I think that's pretty much a certainty at this point. And I think it's almost a certainty that it's delayed until October, although we have not gotten official confirmation of that. And I know some people think we have gotten official confirmation of that, but nowhere has Tesla or Elon said, yep, this event's delayed till October. Elon said we wanted to make some changes but did not specify when the date of this event would actually take place. Now, we do have some pretty important data as well this week, and I just want to say this as clearly as possible. The biggest potential threat to Tesla in terms of getting a, 30, 40, 50% downside move from here, it's not Tesla itself. It's not anything Elon's going to say. It's not Tesla earnings. It's not a failed robotaxi event, although that would be pretty bad if we did not get an estimated start date for the robotaxi. It's the economic data. It is the economy worsening. That is what causes a large crash in our markets. And this week, we're going to get a lot of new information on just the economy. So on Monday, tomorrow morning, Chicago Fed National Activity Index, expecting that to come in a little bit better than last month. But that's it for your Monday. Couple bond auctions here. Really not going to be important. Tuesday, existing home sales month over month. And for the month of June, Richmond Fed Manufacturing Index, Richmond Fed Services Index, 2-year bond auction, 42-day bond auction. Not huge deals there compared to the data that we are going to get throughout this week. On Wednesday, you're going to get S&P Global Composite PMI and S&P Global Manufacturing PMI, as well as S&P Global Services PMI for the month of July. You're expecting these numbers to fall slightly. The composite PMI to fall from 54.8 to 54.7, manufacturing to fall from 51.6 to 51.5, and services to fall from 55.3 down to 55. So you're only expecting a marginal down move for all of those, PMI surveys. And if they do fall more, that could be problematic. Now, if they rise, that's going to be good news, but I think you're kind of skewed to the downside given the recent data that we have seen. On Thursday, durable goods orders month over month, you're expecting 0.3%. Last month was 0.1%. So that would be a pretty dang good number coming off of 0.1% month over month. 0.3% would be a great number. GDP growth rate quarter over quarter advanced data for Q2. Your first estimate for Q2 GDP is expected around 2.5%. The consensus here is 2%. Forecast is 2.5%. The last quarter GDP was 1.4%. So you're expecting an uptick in GDP, which again doesn't really make sense given the other data that we have seen kind of look downwards in the last quarter. So I think there could be room for a downside surprise here from the actual GDP numbers. So keep that in mind. Potential risk for Thursday. Lower GDP is not going to be seen as good news. That's going to be seen as bad news. But it could raise the odds of the Fed cutting rates more. You're also going to get initial jobless claims, expecting that to come in a little bit higher than last week as well at 247,000, and continuing jobless claims expected to also rise about 2,000. So that'll be important because that's more current looking on the state of the labor market. There's a lot of lagged data on the labor market, but those initial jobless claims are coming in every week. And they are signaling a spike. They are signaling things are getting a little bit worse. Now, at 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, because all that data comes out at 8:30 in the morning, at 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday, you will get the Kansas Fed Composite Index and Kansas Fed Manufacturing Index. But by then, we're going to be paying attention to the other data anyway, so I doubt that's going to move too much. On Friday, you get core PCE price index month over month, expecting 0.2%. Last month was 0.1%, so actually expecting a rise in core PCE. That would obviously not be great. Personal income month over month is expected at 0.4%. Last month was 0.5%. And you want to see wages start to catch up to some of the inflationary pressures we have seen, but not feed into this wage price spiral. You don't want to see inflation going up and wages going up. Wages going up by themselves is okay because you're just catching up to the inflation we've already seen in the actual economy. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. If you're curious on that, questions down below in the comments section, go ahead and post them. Personal spending month over month. This is a very important one. You're expecting 0.3%. Last month was 0.2%. So you're expecting spending to pick up as well. And when spending from the consumer is over 2/3 of the economy, it's vitally important that people continue to spend money. So again, it's not just the earnings that will be important this week, it's also the economic data. And there were a lot of rumors over the past week or two that Biden could step out of the presidential race as soon as Sunday, which today is Sunday, tomorrow is Monday. We have not heard that news yet, but if that news does come out at some point today, then that could be a very problematic thing for markets coming this week and something to be on the lookout for. The S&P 500 is already kind of nosediving straight down, and odds are you're probably going to go through a correction here as is, and political volatility, or political uncertainty I shall say, can make that even worse. Now, as far as option activity this week for Tesla stock, if we take a look at the bubble chart, you can see open interest is 59.13% to the call side and 40.87% to the put side. So there is more calls than puts for this week's expiration. The most active strike is this $300 call with open interest of 18,339 and volume on Friday of about 20,000. One of the next highest is that 265 call with open interest of 11,420 and volume of 38,594. You got the 250 call, open interest of about 9,000 and volume of 24,000. Lots of calls seeing a lot of interest heading into this Friday because I mean, this is Tesla earnings week, and I expect you're going to see a lot more of that upside positioning because it's Tesla earnings, because, there can be an upside surprise. It also wouldn't surprise me to see more hedging as well heading into Tesla earnings, because that's probably a smart thing to do if you are short-term focused, like a hedge fund, for an example, that needs to make profits for clients. It would make sense for those individuals to potentially hedge this event. If we take a look at the short position in Tesla, you have 3.79% short interest of free float, $26.21 billion that are currently sold short, and that equals 105.17 million shares that are currently sold short. Sentiment for Tesla over on StockTwits is bullish today at 63. Yesterday, you were bullish at 55, so that looks pretty good. Message volume today is low at 36. Yesterday, it was low at 41. And participation ratio today is high at 55 for Tesla stock. CNN's fear and greed indicator is sitting at 49, which is neutral. So if we really are going into a correction here, there is still a considerable amount of fear that could come into our markets before that correction is over. Normally, this fear and greed index gets into fear or extreme fear before corrections or crashes are actually over with. Usually neutral is not where a correction stops. And the percent of stocks currently trading above their 50-day moving average is at 63.37%. You have 3.4% of stocks that are trading below their 50-day moving average on Friday than you had on Thursday. So that momentum starting to fall a little bit. But like I said in previous videos, if you're mainly in Tesla stock, if you're all in Tesla stock, I think it's actually a little bit of good news that Tesla's fallen 12% from the highs before you have Tesla earnings, because almost the last thing you want is Tesla to be trading, 50, 70% higher than where it was last earnings and not see any retracement heading into earnings. This retracement that we've seen from 271 down to 240 is pricing in a little bit of bad news. It's pricing in maybe not a perfect earnings. It's pricing in maybe not a perfect Tesla stock. And this can allow us to see an upside move following earnings. So believe it or not, this little bit of a pullback heading into Tesla earnings is actually positive for Tesla stock. The biggest thing we want to watch is, does Tesla stay above its longer term trend line, which is about $225 per share? And as long as that happens, that's great. We do have this 20-day moving average at about $230 per share. That will be that first big level of support to the downside, in my personal opinion. And as long as we stay above that, then I think things are great. So let me know what you think about this information down below in the comment section. Hit the like button as well as subscribe to the channel. You guys have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.